Now we go to turn number 4, the assignment phase. And the result is 31. An allied unit to Eastern Europe and 1 Abwehr character to Prussia. An allied unit is selected, placed in Eastern Europe, Interallié. Now the SS player selects an Abwehr unit to be sent to Prussia. The problem is that Hitler is in Rastenburg. So what kind of Abwehr agent does the SS want to send to Prussia? A weak one. So the SS selects Hansen, who is in the line in front of Abwehr headquarters. The Abwehr player looks at his cards and decides to save them for another occasion, so he will let Hansen go to Prussia. So Hansen is picked and placed in Prussia. Now we go to the ever-important roll on the randomizer table for each side to obtain additional cards. And as we can see for turn number 4, as was the case in turn number 3, the Abwehr has 3 chances of 6 of getting cards, while the SS player has only 2. The die is rolled, and it is a 4, a dot. No side gets additional cards. Now it's the Abwehr movement and harassment phase. Situation on this part of the map is interesting. These 3 characters are subject to interrogation. Now, there's 3 SS characters nearby. There is an opportunity to surround these 2 and send them to general retirement, something that would give the Abwehr, who is very short of cards, a breather this turn, while Tresco can possibly be recruited and Hanke can also be surrounded and sent to general retirement. In addition, the Abwehr needs somebody to fill this spot in the line to prevent the SS from entering Abwehr headquarters. The Abwehr starts by moving John to this space and finishing his move. Then Canaris moves here and will attempt and start to harass Hanke to try to force him to retreat. With 3 movement points remaining, Canaris causes Hanke to retreat. He cannot retreat. He goes into general retirement, where he joins Sondreger and Müller. Canaris just got rid of Hanke, who was occupying this space. Canaris could advance here, but he wants also to send Schlabrendorf to general retirement. He has 3 movement points left, so he expends 1 to move here and another 1 to harass. In his last movement point, he obtained a retreat result against Schlabrendorf. So Schlabrendorf also goes into general retirement because he cannot retreat. Canaris advances into the vacated hex and ends his turn. Now the Abwehr will make a series of moves for the purpose of sending these 2 units to general retirement. First, Girdler moves 4 hexes into Obi Heimat into a blocking position. Next, Loringhoven moves 1 hex into Bavaria. Now Gisevius moves 4 hexes adjacent to Skorseny and will use his 3 remaining movement points to harass him. Gisevius' attempts to have Skorseny retreat failed, and Gisevius remains where he is. Now Haften is activated, moves 1 space adjacent to both SS characters, and will start harassing Skorseny first. Haften, with 4 movement points remaining, obtains a masked result against Skorseny. Now he switches his harassment to Daluge. Haften fails in causing any damage against Daluge, but he remains in his original hex. Situation gets complicated for the Abwehr. Gisevius and Haften failed in sending these 2 characters to general retirement. Donangi has the option of finishing the job, which would leave him in this area, or moving adjacent to Tresco and attempt to recruit him with Oster. Now, if Donangi stays to finish the job here, the Abwehr will probably be forced to use Bonhoeffer to recruit Tresco, which in the event of success will flip Bonhoeffer to his suspected side, and he will be vulnerable to investigation and interrogation by the SS. So the decision is a compromise. Donanji will move one movement point here, will use another one to harass Deluge, will live with the result, and then use the remaining movement points to move adjacent to Tresco and attempt to recruit him with the assistance of Oster. So Donanji moves one space adjacent to Deluge and will have one shot at harassing. One die roll on the +4 differential column. The result is 3 neutralized. So it's not a retreat result, but it's the next best thing. Deluge is neutralized, and Donanji can move 6 movement points adjacent to Tresco. Now Oster will join Donanji to try to recruit Tresco, but before that will use some movement points to try to neutralize or produce a masked result against Helldorf so that he does not become a threat in the next SS turn. So Oster moves one space here, a second movement point here, and will harass Helldorf. With 4 movement points left, Oster obtains a neutralized result against Helldorf, and he ends his turn right there. Now Bonhoeffer moves the full extent of his movement allowance to block the gap here. Yet he moves his full movement allowance through southern France in the direction of Berlin. Now we go to the Abwehr recruitment phase. The only recruitment being attempted is that of Tresco by Oster and Donanji, a +9 attempt. Die is rolled, and it is 5 semi-recruitment. So Tresco is only semi-recruited. He will not join unless Hitler is killed in the coup portion of the game. It's a status adjustment phase, and Hoffaker rolls to see if he returns from general retirement. He needs 1 or 2, and he rolls a 2. So he is placed back on the map, and he is placed at OKW headquarters. Now it's the SS player turn. We start by checking for Hitler movement. So it's a 4, so he stays in Rastenburg. From moves his full movement allowance to move next to Helldorf to prevent him from being surrounded. Redder moves his full movement allowance into Austria to prevent Donanji from outflanking the SS line. Himmler moves 7 hexes to a position adjacent to Haften and will use his 2 remaining points to harass him. Himmler rolls a 1 and gets a defender retreat result. Haften cannot retreat. He goes into general retirement. Himmler will not occupy the hex. He has 2 movement points left. He'll just move 1 movement point here and ends his turn. Bormann moves 6 hexes to Rome. Schellenberg and Heydrich move their full movement allowance towards the south of Berlin. Finally, Kaltenbrunner moves south. And that is the end of the SS movement and harassment phase. We go to the SS recruitment phase. Kaltenbrunner will attempt to recruit Delp. The SS has Delp's card. But the attempt fails and Kaltenbrunner has to retreat 1 hex. SS status adjustment phase. We remove the masked marker from Skorzeny and the neutralized marker from Deluge. And gone also is Helldorf's neutralized marker. Now rolls are made for the characters in the SS general retirement box. They need a 1 or a 2 to come back to the map. Of the 4, only Hanke comes back to the map. He is placed in the SS garrison. And that's the end of the SS player turn, and that concludes turn number 4. Moving on to turn number 5. Let's take a look at the card situation. The SS has a total of 26 cards, while the Abwehr has 16. The SS has 8 action cards, including 2 of the 8 Führer cards in the game. The Abwehr has only 5 action cards. The SS has 18 character cards and the Abwehr 11. We go now to the interface and we roll on the assignment table. It is 22. An Allied unit will be placed in Alsace-Lorraine, and 1 Abwehr unit will be selected by the SS to go to the Vatican. Take an Allied unit and we place it in Alsace-Lorraine. Scientist. The SS doesn't want to assign a very powerful unit in the Vatican now because it could be used to harass and surround SS units. So it selects Bonhoeffer in order to get him out of this zone here and allow SS units to pass through here, and Bonhoeffer is not a significant threat. The Abwehr in turn will play its enemy assignment card, and now the Abwehr selects which SS unit goes to the Vatican, and the Abwehr selects Himmler to go to the Vatican. Now the SS player can play an enemy or a friendly assignment to switch who goes to the Vatican. They definitely don't want Himmler backtracking to the Vatican. So they're going to play an enemy assignment and they will revert to Bonhoeffer. Now the Abwehr could play this card, friendly assignment, and choose which Abwehr unit apart from Bonhoeffer would go to the Vatican, but they prefer not to burn this card and save it for future use, so Bonhoeffer is going to the Vatican. So Bonhoeffer is assigned to the Vatican. Now we go to the ever more critical die roll on the randomizer table for turn 5. Again, another turn which the Abwehr has a better chance than the SS. A 3-2 chance, and there's always a 1 in 6 chance of no cards for either player. So we're going to roll the die now. And at last, the Abwehr gets 11 new cards with that die roll of 2. So 11 cards are dealt. 4 action cards and 7 character cards, but no Führer Axis cards for the Abwehr player. Go to the Abwehr movement and harassment phase. We are halfway through the game, and it is clear that the recruitment campaign for the Abwehr has been a disaster. They only have 1 army figure recruited, and 2 of the most powerful are in semi-recruited or frozen status. Now, they have potential for recruiting Stulpnagel and Rommel. However, they are very near enemy units, so it's going to be tough to recruit them in this turn. And they have a problem with Gisevius and Loringhoven, who are practically surrounded, especially Gisevius, by enemy units. So let's see what happens in this turn for the Abwehr player. Loringhoven moves without entering a zone of control of an enemy character, 6 hexes, and has 1 remaining point to harass Deluge and see if he retreats. The result is an attacker retreat, so Loringhoven retreats 1 space here. Now Gisevius also moves without entering any zone of control and stops here in Austria. In light of the reduced number of Abwehr-friendly units present on the board, the Abwehr cannot have the luxury of having units outside of Berlin. So the Abwehr plays this card, the travel card, in order to enable Gere here to move to a headquarters. He moves to Abwehr headquarters, and from there he can move and moves here in the line. That will liberate Canaris for him to be able to do some movement and harassing. Canaris decides now that it's time to get rid of this part of the line, so he is activated and he starts by harassing Wolf. In the first movement point, Wolf has to retreat, so Wolf retreats here. Canaris decides not to enter this space and now switches to harass Frank. Canaris obtains a neutralized result against Frank, and that means, among other things, that Frank doesn't have a zone of control. So Canaris expends another movement point, leaving him with 5. He moves into this hex, expends another one, and now he's going to harass Wolf again. Wolf now receives a masked result. Now Canaris will attempt to harass Poppets, and he'll have 2 movement points. Canaris neutralizes Poppets also. With 2 movement points left, he uses 1 against Wolf and obtains a retreat result. So Wolf retreats, Canaris occupies this space, and now with 1 movement point left, he will attack Poppets. The last movement point attack, it's an attacker retreat for Canaris, so he retreats and the neutralized marker is removed from Poppets. There is a dangerous gap for the Abwehr here, so Mueller is going to move here. And Trott will move out of the zone of control and back in, and he has to stop. In this sector, John starts by moving adjacent to Redder in Austria. Oster moves 5 hexes along this route, adjacent to Stulpnagel. And Donanji moves 2 hexes, also adjacent to Stulpnagel. Now Bonhoeffer cannot move through these hexes because it would have to stop in a zone of control here, or here, or here. And he's not strong enough to attack any of those units, so he's going to stay put at the vat. Hansen, who is in Prussia, moves 3 hexes to the south. And that concludes the Abwehr movement and harassment phase. Donanji and Oster attempt to recruit Stupelnagel. It is a +12 attempt. It will be rolled on the 7+ column. The roll was a 5, incredibly, another semi-recruitment. It's a status recruitment phase, and now Hafton rolls to see if he gets out of general retirement. Needs a 1 or 2. He rolls a 5, so he stays in general retirement. Now we go to the SS player turn and we check for Hitler movement. And the result is 5. He still stays in Rastenburg. Daluge moves 4 hexes adjacent in Austria to Gisevius. Bormann moves 4 hexes adjacent to Loringhoven and will harass him with the 2 movement points that he has left. Bormann makes Loringhoven retreat. Bormann has the option of occupying the hex, and he does so. Next, he has 1 movement point left, and he moves to Austria behind Gisevius. And that concludes his movement. The SS activates Himmler. He moves 2 hexes and uses 3rd movement point to harass Loringhoven. Loringhoven is called to retreat 1 hex. Himmler occupies the vacated space and harasses him again. Loringhoven is called to retreat again, and he retreats into Abwehr headquarters. Himmler occupies the space. Himmler still has 5 movement points left, so he uses all 5 to move adjacent to Donanji and Oster. Skorzeny follows in Himmler's path. Schellenberg moves adjacent to Gisevius, but in Berlin. Seeing that the situation in the line has become very delicate for the SS, Heydrich decides to rush back to that sector. Kaltenbrunner does the same thing. Frank is neutralized, and in the next turn, Canaris another Abwehr unit could pass right through him, so Hanke decides to block that route. Wolf moves into the line once again. That's the end of the SS movement and harassment phase. There's no recruitment attempts by the SS. We move therefore to the investigation phase. Himmler and Helldorf, with a combined effectiveness of 15, are investigating Donanji with 7. It is a 2-to-1 attempt. The result is 1 SS. The SS player may take 1 pick from the Abwehr chit holding box. So the Abwehr player collects all his cards, shuffles them, and randomly selects 1 card. It is that for Bonhoeffer. And the card is placed in the SS card pool. Now we go to the status adjustment phase. A neutralized marker is removed from Frank. Rolls are made for the SS players' units in the general retirement box. 1 or 2 will send them back to the map. So in this turn, Schlabrendorf returns to the map. So Schlabrendorf returns to this army headquarters, but now he returns unrecruited. Okay, we'll make a correction here. Hoffaker returned the turn before from retirement, and I forgot to flip him back because he returns unrecruited. But it's okay, he hasn't moved, he hasn't done anything, so that correction is made now. This is the situation at the end of turn 5. The SS is closing in on Gisevius. The SS is also in hot pursuit of Oster and Donanji. Canaris, however, managed to push the line back away from Abwehr and Army headquarters, but the SS has filled the gaps. The headquarters still appear safe, but they will be more difficult to defend now since there are SS-friendly characters around them and the Abwehr has failed to add recruits to its cause. In terms of cards, the Abwehr has managed to close the gap, but still has no Führer Axis cards.